Hello and welcome. This video is the second video in our API how-to series and will show you how to make a call using PHP and NetBeans IDE. For the purpose of this video, we're using NetBeans IDE 7.3. Firstly, let's open our NetBeans IDE program. Once opened, go to File and New Project. As discussed, we're going to use PHP. Now click on PHP Application. Click Next. Name the project make_cool. Save the project in your local hosts folder. We are using WAMP and www. Again, save this as make_cool. In terms of the version, we are going to use PHP version 5.4. Click Next. We're going to run this from our local host, so you can click on the next screen. We're not going to use any PHP framework, so you can click Finish once prompted with this screen. Your new project is now created. We now need to find this project by going to Source File and selecting index.php. This file contains all of the code we need to get started. Before we add our code, we need to add the SYNETY Account API class into our project. We can retrieve this from the Development Center of the SYNETY website. We have included a direct link to this section in the detail of this video. We now need to add this library to our project. This is just a sample you downloaded from the website, as it includes the class we need for the library. Make sure you unzip the folder once you have downloaded it. The folder you are looking for is account_lvl. You will then need to find the file synety_account_api.php. Copy this file and paste it into your project folder. Now we have copied the class, we now need to add a configuration file that contains some parameters we need to use in our project. To create these parameters, we need to go to Source Files, followed by New and PHP file. Name this file config.php. The config needs to contain 3 parameters: username of the account you are going to use on this project, password of the account, and license key. Now let's define those parameters. Firstly, username of the account you are going to use. This is your account ID. Secondly, we need to define the password for the account. Please note this is the service password. If you do not have access to your username and password, you can retrieve these from the SYNETY portal by going to Configuration and Service Accounts. Find the user you wish to configure and click Configure. Their details will then be displayed. Finally, we need to add your license key. If you haven't yet created your unique license key, or you need to access your current one, please go to the SYNETY portal and click Integration and API License Keys. Once you have your license key, copy and paste this into your code. Once all of your configuration parameters are entered and are correct, you will need to go to your index.php file. Here you will need to add the SYNETY code. The first thing we need to do is to create a simple UI, a user interface, that takes 2 parameters from the user. The first parameter is the CLI and the second is the CLD. The CLI is the phone number of the caller. This is otherwise known as the first leg of the call. The CLD is the number of the caller, otherwise known as the second leg of the call. We need to create a very simple UI using HTML. This will contain 2 text fields. The first one will take the value of the CLI, input, type, text. We will name this CLI. We now need to create the second text field for the CLD. We will name this CLD. The final step here is to add the Submit button, otherwise known as Make a Call button. We will name this Make_Call. Before we add the code to process the request and make calls, we need to specify the method we are going to use and the URL we are going to send the request to. We're going to use post method and sync the same URL to the same page. To do this, set action to the same page. Now we have finished building our simple user interface, we now need to write the code to action the request. We need to make sure we include the library. To do this, at the top of the page we need to write that we require the SYNETY library. Use the library we added before. Require_once SYNETY_account_API.php. We need to create an object of the class. This will be SYNETY_API equals new SYNETY_account_API. Before we write the code to process the request, we need to make sure the form says method and not type, as demonstrated. Now let's write the code to process the request. We need to make sure we don't process the request if it is not coming from the CLI and CLD we mentioned in the above form, which has post as method. The code you need is if iset post make_call. This will check if the post field is called make_call. Comes with the request, we need to process this request. We need to pass the parameters from the form. The first one is the CLI. We need to check whether the parameters are empty or not valid for members. First of all, we need to remove any space in the parameters passed to the process. This code will remove any spaces in the CLI. We will do the same for CLD. Now let's check to see if we have empty or not valid phone numbers. The first check is for empty string. So, if empty CLI or empty CLD, we need to display a message that prompts the user to complete all fields. We have set the colour to fire brick. Please complete all fields. Secondly, we need to check whether it's a valid number or not. We can do this by using built-in function PHP code. ctype_digit. If the CLI or CLD variables do not contain a valid number, we need to display another message. please enter valid phone numbers. If the function finds anything that is not a number, it will display the error message we have included. This error message being, please enter valid phone numbers. Finally, we need to enter the code that processes the request. This is simple. We just need to execute one function. To get the response of this function, we use the object at the top of the page, SYNETY _account _API class. Now we need to add the make_call method. We just need to pass the CLI and CLD to make this function work. Finally, we need to echo the response. JSON response echo response. This response will determine if the call was successful or not. Our code is now finished. Now it's time to test what we have written. Don't forget to save your configuration. To test your project, open a new browser and type the address localhost / make_call / index.php. Your CLI and CLD boxes will now appear. Enter your details. If you leave the CLD box empty, your message of "Please complete all fields" appears. Now let's try testing an invalid number. Our message of "Please enter valid phone numbers" appears. Finally, for our third test, we will add a valid number in both fields. As you can see and hear, the call is valid. The response shows that the call was made. It shows the session ID of the call and also shows the CLI and CLD numbers of the calls and various other details. We hope you have found this video useful. Please watch our other API videos that are available from the SYNETY site.